Morning, everybody. I'm going to call tonight's meeting of the Whately Planning Board order. It is 5:04 p.m. on February 26th. The first topic on our agenda is I want to update everybody on a draft zoning bylaw regarding battery energy storage systems. I have circulated a draft, so just to get everybody on the same page. You're in Whately for now, I think it was formed and launched just before the new year, so like in December of 2024, we have an energy storage system study committee. Yep. So Paul Newland network. Paul Newland from the energy committees on that board. I'm there as the planning board representative. Erica, our community development coordinator, is there kind of as a staff facilitator. Joyce Palmer Fortune as select board rep is there. We have Michael Archibald. We have George Owens. George is representing the Conservation Committee. I forget which committee Michael is representing. Judy Markland is on the board as kind of a at-large member. We did have Doug Coldwell from Ag. He's still not only on the board, in case agricultural related issues come up. And I said again, Paul, hey, welcome. So, we're just on our first agenda item, just updating people about where we are on this battery energy storage system bylaw.
Okay.
So we have this working energy storage system study committee. Judy has been I think the primary driver of work within the committee and is really the lead author of the draft bylaw. So I've circulated to this board two documents, both authored by Judy, that are intended, they're still very much in the draft stage. Right? And I think the overarching context here is that Judy and others in town are concerned about the potential threat to public health, safety, natural resources like our aquifers, from the possibility that utility scale battery energy storage systems that are perhaps not associated with any solar facility. They're just, they buy a parcel of land and they put these large battery systems there. There have been reports of these systems, when they're lithium ion technologies, they've been known with some, I don't know if I would say frequency, but non-zero chance that they get into situations where they essentially catch fire. They can be very difficult to put out. They can require large volumes of water, etc. So based on hearing these kinds of concerns and based on other things happening elsewhere around the state of Massachusetts, here in our town, we've been sort of looking into this with sort of like representatives of different boards. So I think, and I'm right now just trying to be kind of reportorial and not editorial about what's going on. So I think that there is some consensus within, or some desire within among the members of the Energy Storage Systems Committee, that some zoning bylaw be put in place, and that would be our work to do, to basically regulate how such systems, where they might be sited, size limit, all the kinds of things that we typically can regulate in zoning. Because Judy has, I think, correctly identified the fact that there's only so much that can be achieved when something is initially established. And there are concerns not only about where battery systems get placed, but how they are operated and maintained over time. And we basically lose I mean, we can put conditions on how things operate over time, but we have no real ability as a planning board to do oversight of inspections, or we basically act based on citizen reports, and how many citizens would really know what's going on inside, some secure facility, right? So the idea, the strategy, and I believe this has been done in a few other places that don't quote me right now as to where that's been done, that these zoning bylaws are passed to regulate siting and establishment of the facilities, and then general bylaws which are outside our purview, are then passed to create some kind of entity in town that would have the authority to maintain oversight over time, right? So the second general bylaw that is in draft form establishes a 7-member licensing board, okay? Drawn again, I think the details are like all 3 members of the select board would be on this licensing board. There would be a member drawn from the Conservation Commission, another member drawn, I believe, from the Board of Health. But ultimately you get to 7 members of a licensing board.
Fire chief.
Maybe.
And an annual inspection.
I think there's something to that effect, right? So I don't have and we're not tonight, because things are still very much in draft form. So we're not going to, I think, review this document. I put this item on the agenda tonight to allow for the possibility that one or more members of the Energy Storage System Study Committee would come to tonight's meeting and kind of facilitate a conversation about it. But, and I'll return to that.
I have 2 quick comments. One comment is that I don't think it's fair anymore, but I see lots of other communities that try to string things down the government, the state supersedes it.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah,
And then my second comment was they were looking to put one of these on Chestnut Plain Road, kind of like across the street from Whately Church, and was lots of opposition.
oh, yes.
There's a public.
Was that standalone or?
I think it was solar and backup,
Solar
and
and
it was a
storage, yes.
huge outpouring of
what I've
people
heard.
coming to the zoning board meeting that were against it.
Right,
And it wasn't just that, but it was also like they had to put in these 3 telephone poles, the big 3
yeah,
devices for the solar.
Right.
They didn't have 3-phase power, and they have to put trees down.
right.
There was a lot more to it, so I'm like, if this is allowed, does all that other stuff happen by right? Like, if they put this in, they put all the trees down to get the power in.
Yeah, too early.
There's a
Right.
lot of moving pieces and beats.
And I appreciate
Those
those
are my
comments.
comments.
These are things I've been told as well, that there was a time where there was a sort of a general uproar in town around a particular thing that then ultimately went away. Right, and it's been suggested that there's residual concern, but it hasn't been, that's a sleeping dog, because no new projects of this nature have been proposed in town, right? So, anyway, so this Energy Storage Study Committee is drafting this general bylaw that ultimately has to be taken up and approved by the select board and still, I think, brought to voters. That part I'm not entirely sure, I would expect. And then anything that is zoning related would have to come through this board and again, reach voters at annual town meeting. So it's a complicated matter. Not a lot of members of the Energy Storage Study Committee, besides potentially Judy and me, have much familiarity with zoning.
Sure.
So, and there's a lot to it. We've been looking at other prior art. Judy has drawn, we do know that the town of Medway, Massachusetts, they hired a professional services company to help them develop their battery energy storage system bylaw, which was passed and approved in 2022,
Okay.
a few years ago. Made it all the way through the Attorney General and is on the books in Medway. And then the town of Sunderland just recently passed their own battery energy storage system bylaw. And we've looked at that and talked to them, and always there are some local concerns. That nothing is quite cookie cutter in this area, though there seem to be common concerns around, like the most common concerns are environmental hazards, fires, and now, of course, with climate change, drawing of forests, now there's the whole thing, like, if this thing catches fire, and if there are not sufficient setbacks, or if things can catch fire and then extend
Right.
it just,
Well, and in our town, it's a volunteer fire department. There's not that many people on it.
right.
A lot of the towns around us are volunteer fire departments too.
Half the town was covered by town water.
Yeah, and they're, limited access
Yeah.
to,
There might not be a fire hydrant right there, and then they've got to bring in a tanker truck, and that takes
so there
time.
are a lot of reasonable concerns.
We don't have a hydrant until I think the center of town for our house. If our house starts to burn, it's going up. Not
So-
great.
So, yeah, I don't at all, you know, people have understandable concerns about
Mhm.
these kinds of threats. So, but still, there are always devils in the details.
Right.
And I think I've wanted, because, you know, I've really wanted the drafting, the development of the bylaw, like I wanted to get it to like 80–90% or something outside of the planning board.
Yeah.
Like, let it have a place to cook and develop and get. Because I didn't think we're yet ready to take on, it is still a bit of a major project.
Yeah.
I think. And I think.
Can I
we-
ask- Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine, Patty. Go ahead.
I'm gonna take off my ears real quick because then I get echo. I also called in, by the way. Has anyone thought about the lawsuit that Hadley is bringing in regards to this, or looked into it?
We're constantly, you know, fielding things like, oh, there was just an article in the Reporter about this, and we don't know that. The Hadley situation just appeared on our radar like today, so I don't think we know much about it. In general, what we, well, and I'll bring up another point. This picks up on something you said, JD. So in the there's a state law that's going into effect in March of 2026, whose primary intent is to streamline siting and permitting processes across all of Massachusetts regarding clean energy facilities, which include solar arrays and includes battery storage and other kinds of things, right? And I read a report. There was a commission form providing recommendations to the governor. And my reading of those recommendations is that like when it comes to battery storage in 2026, for systems greater than 100 megawatts, which is a lot of megawatts, let's be clear, like for systems above that threshold, there's going to be a state level energy facilities siting board that will handle all of those things with some ability for towns to participate in that process, but local zoning won't be, will not apply. And below that threshold, this is where there's, at least in my mind, uncertainty. Like the way I read these recommendations to say that the state is going to release regulations and model bylaws to basically define how all cities and towns must have a streamlined process for permitting systems smaller than 100 megawatts. So they set the bar on these systems pretty darn high. Cause most of the things I've seen are like 100 megawatts, 200 megawatts, 300 megawatts. I just saw something about 600 megawatts. And I think our solar systems are like in the range of 5 or 10 megawatts of generation. I mean, they're not big, right? So my reading of the recommendations is that the state is going to do for clean energy facilities what they did for ADUs. Namely, basically take away local control, except in certain, limited areas to be determined. And so, and I don't think we on the Energy Storage Committee have a clear understanding of that. I think there's one position that says we need to get a zoning bylaw in place right away, ASAP. Because we're vulnerable. And town council has confirmed that with nothing on our bylaws, if somebody came in tomorrow, they could start a project. So, but then I don't know if we go through the effort of getting a zoning bylaw on the books. Will it be invalidated in March of 2026 next year? I don't know, right? So
Sorry, to the same point, even if it's potentially going to be invalidated in 13 months, if we're vulnerable during that time,
Right.
and then some, if companies are trying to step in and get things done before this state guidance comes out, then we're kind of like ripe for the picking,
Yeah.
so to speak. So it might be beneficial to put in the work ahead of time, take the risk that we have to do it again
right,
next year, but at least if we do it this year and have to amend things next year to comply with the new state guidance, we are like one step ahead, right? So maybe it's worth our time.
fair point, right? So the other thing where we are in the study committee is around timetables. Right now, annual town meeting remains to go ahead on schedule on the last Thursday of April per our town ordinances. It's generally understood within the study committee that we are not close enough with a draft, like they're not ready to drop something on us, or we just have a public hearing and, so nobody expects, we've all given up on, let's get this done by April annual
Right.
town meeting. Now there's talk about, well, there might be a special town meeting. We normally wouldn't do a thing like this, a special town meeting. Conversations like we've had about ADUs elsewhere, but there's typically a limited special town meeting like June, maybe another one in the fall.
Mhm.
So I think, again, to report, there seems to be a desire within the study committee to have a bylaw ready for us to take up. And then I think, I mean, we then have to make sure we're comfortable enough with what it entails for us, because eventually we'll have to deal with the site review aspects of such that will come with such a bylaw. And then we'll have to do a public hearing and all the things that we do. So what you've already seen, you've seen a draft that's probably 80%, 90%, and there's still numbers, setbacks, setback questions. And in my own mind, and now this is getting off of reporting and a little into editorial, I simply would say, so I take some comfort in the fact that this draft has a provenance that's drawn from like a town that's already done it, spent the money. It's not some cockamamie thing from left field. Yet there's still enough complications that we might have to basically decide whether we are comfortable enough with it without fully understanding every detail, like, the balance of, do you do it fast? Or do you do it right? You can't always do it both fast and right.
Right.
So I think that's really all I have to say. You've seen, I'll circulate one more, let me just finish this point. I'll circulate one more, sort of high level summary, like what the overall strategy was. But I'm gonna get it at our next regularly scheduled meeting at the end of March. That's when one or more members of the study committee are gonna attend this meeting and kind of walk us through where things stand at that point. And then I guess we can talk about timetables.
I had a question for Sarah. Since you have the longest tenure here, when was the last time we had a solar facility come before the planning board?
It was the one that has not yet gone in at, 170 Long Plain Road, Hudkoski's,
It's been a while.
a couple of years.
Oh, I've been on the board since 2020, so it hasn't been in that time.
I'm just looking, is there a risk that someone's gonna come tomorrow for this? And it sounds like if we haven't had one in 4 or 5 years, the risk is probably pretty low. That's what it's got.
I don't know.
Oh, I'm
honestly-
sorry, that was pot. Oh my God, they all mixed together in my head. The last one was the next amp one that's across from me. We had, no, we had the one on North Street that, Historic and the neighbors did. That was, Roberta, I know the last name. It's the hayfield there, did not go in. That was right in some wetlands. And then there was one next to Fudders on the other end of Chestnut Plain that you were talking about. And, that one didn't make it either. That one was talking about battery, but that is smack dab in the middle of the aquifer protection area. So that was the last one.
Yeah, it's been years and nobody. I mean, we have no idea how to quantify the actual vulnerability, like what's the likelihood that something is gonna come in soon?
Okay.
But these things have happened, right?
Yeah.
And so, all right, so that's where we are.
One thing that was interesting in the last, it maybe is more than 5 years, next amp across from the one on Christian Lane on the mid-Christian Lane. So there's 4 on Christian Lane, or off of Christian Lane, the one that is on the Cocott property. Next amp just said, oh yeah, we're putting in batteries. And the planning board was able to say, that was not part of your original planning, original plan.
Right.
So that was a little underhanded how they attempted that. That one was interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So it is also the case that if we deal with battery storage as a bylaw, we're also going to have to make related amendments to our solar. Because there are certain references to battery storage in there. So a couple of things are gonna have to happen, right? So the main point is, if you haven't looked at the drafts of the bylaw already, do so that you can come better informed at the end of March to engage with the study committee about it. Okay. Very good. So I want to move on to our next topic. We had a public hearing on the 2 zoning amendments at our meeting on the 12th. By the way, Laura, I actually would appreciate it if you would send me the
Yes.
minutes you took or the
Yes.
notes, so we can get minutes together. And I'm gonna also appreciate that you're taking notes tonight. Yeah, that's,
No problem.
I'll have more to say about that later in tonight's meeting. So I did circulate to all of you, and I'll share it on my screen. But after we have a public hearing and we make our votes and determinations, we have it's expected, we don't have to submit a report to the planning board. to the select board, but it's typically what we do. So I've drafted the report that I've circulated. And either we can sort of walk through it, or mostly because right now the select board has now opened the town meeting warrant and is starting to take articles for annual town meeting in April. Apparently we're not obliged to even submit a report until after the warrant closes, but I just, sooner rather than later is my opinion. So mostly what I want to hear from you is any wording changes, and in particular, I would expect that my write-up on the floodplain overlay district bylaw proposal is pretty straightforward. But I would be particularly interested if anyone feels, I think I did my level best to capture the essence of Judy's comments. And try to represent them fairly and represent our decision-making about it under a planning board recommendation. So that's like the one area where I really love to hear your feedback, and if we need to make changes, this is a great time to do it, or if you want more time and do this outside of tonight's meeting.
I think you did a pretty well, Brett. I don't have any comments. Good job.
Thoughts, Laura?
No, I think you did a good job too.
Okay.
Fine with it.
Sarah,
Thank you, Brant, for taking care of that.
is that a thank you plus good with it as written?
Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you. Patty? You are muted, but if you come off mute, or you wanna read it a little bit more, Patty?
Hang on to say, I accidentally hung up on my phone. So I missed half of that.
Okay, I'll just
So
repeat.
could you reiterate what you were talking about, please?
Yeah, so, we have a obligation.
I can't hear you now.
Well, I can hear you. I
Okay,
can hear you. I can hear you just
Yep.
fine. You can hear me? That's a yes? You're good? You're hearing me?
that is a yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So we have to send a report to the select board with our recommendations and rationales about zoning amendments. And so I thought I did my best to kind of capture the essence of what we talked about and how we voted and how we made our decisions. I thought the write-up of the floodplain overlay decision was fairly straightforward. But I definitely would welcome any feedback on how I, wrote up the discussion, comments from Judy and our deliberations, and ultimately, probably the most important feeling where I just want to get your feedback or changes or endorsement is like right around this last paragraph that I highlighted there, that we voted unanimously, take no position on the proposal, and that you feel comfortable with the word, that the way I wrote it, like that we see no significant harm in the proposal and some potential, albeit limited economic benefit.
Mhm.
If I've overstated that, or please, like everyone on this board needs to feel like this speaks for all of us, and I haven't put words in anybody's mouth that you don't feel comfortable with. So maybe I'll give people a chance, like, look at this, feel their internal mental state about it, and then if somebody has a desire or is moved to make a motion to, approve this report either as written or to make an amendment, somebody can speak up. It's like a Quaker meeting.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think you captured it pretty well. There's really nothing that, there's nothing in addition that I would like to add. It was kind of one of those meetings where it's like, yep, we understand where they're going with this. But we want to take it to town meeting to let the town approve of the proposal. Without us taking a stand one way or the other.
Share your feedback. So yes, then absolutely, this is the time for making motions.
All right, I will make a motion that we forward this planning board report to the select board based on the draft for the floodplain overlay district bylaw proposal and the marijuana product like manufacturing proposal.
Motion is made. I hear a motion has been made by JD and it's been seconded by Sarah. So we'll do our usual.
Has it been seconded?
It has been seconded. So we'll do our usual roll call vote, and I'll start with the person who made the motion, JD. Aye.
Aye.
And Sarah
Aye.
and Addie,
Aye.
aye, and Laura,
I,
and I am aye. Very good. So the report is, we've approved the report to be forwarded as written to the select board. Thank you. Thank you all. So that's that. Moving to the next item on our agenda, letter from FERCog on mobile homes and manufacturing homes. I did circulate this. I will just share this document. So hopefully you had a chance to read this. There are certain recommendations that I've now got shared on screen. Delete, remove the definition of mobile home and remove the listing of mobile homes in the table view, which we don't. I know what you do. I'll just show you all. I'm gonna share my screen. We have in our bylaws, section 171-27, covering trailers, recreational vehicles, and mobile homes. So to implement the recommendations in the FERCog letter, we would need to either revise 171-27 and potentially there's a definition I didn't check way down in the definition sections in our bylaw whether we define mobile home. But so one thing we could potentially do is do a zoning amendment that revises this, potentially striking the language about mobile homes. We could look at it and say, maybe we strike the whole thing. I don't know. We're not gonna be doing anything like this for annual town meeting, right? We've got the two things we've done for annual town meeting and time's out. So. I think this is another example where if we do nothing, then the building inspector just does the right thing
The
because.
building inspector says the definition of a mobile home is not there. They're putting a manufactured home
Right.
and it's irrelevant. I'm just gonna prove things that are manufactured homes, which is the current, and that might be the easiest thing.
Yeah, so in looking at the. Well, so I want to allow just a few minutes of conversation to see if people, I mean, I didn't ask you to look at this or think about this so that you're sort of.
Right, what's the next
approaching it
page?
cold. Yeah. let's scroll.
Is there a date?
I think there's any shows of state sanitary code, all right, so there's a little, I can't seem to get it all.
So when you look at the previous page, when they say trailer, is that an RV trailer or is that a?
Well,
Okay.
I was gonna ask, how does that affect the campground, White Birch?
Well, I think the campground probably is in B where it talks about
Yeah,
operating under a special permit. I think that probably applies
They
to,
have to have
Yeah.
special
The
permits from the Board of Health too.
yeah. Yeah, this
Okay.
time limit doesn't apply to trailers or RVs which are kept at a campground operating under a special permit.
But when it says an a trailer or recreational vehicle, is that, is it a camper trailer, or is it any?
Yeah.
trailer?
So let's
I have
just,
5 trailers.
well, this is one of those funny things about bylaws, right?
Yeah,
So there are 11 references to trailers. Let's see if trailer is defined. Okay, so we do have a definition in our bylaws of a trailer or recreational vehicle.
they're something that you're using to, a portable dwelling unit, basically,
Yeah, I think that's the key thing.
not a landscape trailer.
Yeah, I don't think that they mean like where you take,
no,
tote around your snowmobile.
Yeah.
I don't think, yeah, any kind of utility trailer or livestock trailer, I don't think is what they're talking about.
That's not to say this is the greatest definition, right? You know, these are the things we find in the planning board. We just, these weird sleeping dogs. I don't know myself, going back to the original bylaw, like, how do I feel from the perspective of 2025 about this? Do I want to say that like, is the right strategy to just strike the language about mobile homes, but leave all the provisions that pertain to trailers and recreational vehicles? Like, do we still believe that a trailer or recreational vehicle as defined needs to be in bona fide storage limited to a single?
I do, because you run the risk of someone's living in the trailers in your driveway, and it becomes an ADU, so you need to have those things.
Okay.
So maybe striking the mobile home piece, or we just let Jim Hawkins determine that what someone's applying for that's not a mobile home is a manufactured home, and doesn't apply to. But yes, the first two are, it's important.
So you think leaving A and B would be the way to go? And would still allow RVs in a campground if that, if White Birch continues. And then part C, a mobile home may be, so this would be struck entirely.
C,
Part C just addresses this notion of a mobile home. But if they're saying basically delete references to mobile homes, and so we might potentially just amend this to rename it trailers and recreational vehicles. Delete reference, delete anything like and mobile homes. Leave A, which doesn't refer to mobile homes, leave B, which doesn't refer to mobile homes, and strike C, which is it.
I think we should keep C, but change it from, can you go back? Oh, instead of a mobile home, a trailer or recreational vehicle may be occupied as a temporary shelter for the owner during a fire or a natural holocaust.
I see. Yeah, I could see how that,
Cause you know, they got a fifth wheel camper, they're gonna live in it while the house burned down, that gives them the out right there to do that. Gives them more than the 14 days, so we just change that from mobile home to a trailer recreational vehicle.
what are people's thoughts about it? Sarah?
I do think we need to, just as JD and Laura were talking earlier, define trailer a little more than not utility or animal trailer.
Okay.
Camper trailer, I'm not sure if that's the only name for them. But just semantics.
Do we even
Technically,
need,
there's a sticker on an RV.
right,
It's some association that they're approved in the country to run. There's a special sticker that certifies they are a legal RV. The manufacturers all have to have this thing and it passes a federal highway standard, right?
NHTSA or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but there is one they all have.
Is what you're talking about.
so when it comes to definitions, remember that the floodplain bylaw has a definition of recreational vehicle. I don't think it defines trailer. So one open question is, do we need to separately define trailer? Or just use recreational vehicle as the thing that we're talking about?
But you have to remember that recreational vehicles are not necessarily standalone. Sometimes they are trailers or go on the back of a pickup truck.
And with their motor coaches.
I guess
Yeah.
the question is the term recreational vehicle really only encompassing like a RV that you're driving in the front and it's like a bus,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Versus a tow behind of some sort or an insert into
Okay.
the back of the truck. So,
That's right. There's an important distinction to
Right.
be made between the independently rolling and drivable and the tow behinds.
What does the RMV call it?
What does
What
the,
does the Ministry of Motor Vehicles?
I'll Google it.
Because that would be
what do they call a trailer? or
It
what
would
do
be
they call it?
nicely technical.
technical, whatever the,
I see, camper trailers.
as a trail, I believe a few. like
There are
that.
also
Few of them.
horse trailers that have living quarters.
yeah, I thought of that too, because I know there's at least one person in town who's got one parked in their driveway.
Yeah.
But
So-
it's highly coveted by me.
To me, honestly, it feels like we're splitting hairs. I think the intent of this law is to not have a temporary vehicle or whatever you want to call it, be a permanent residence.
Yeah. Yeah, or even sort of a long-term residence, which doesn't, just could mean months versus weeks or something like that.
I have actually another question, and I have no idea if this even is a consideration or a concern, but Orchard Trailer has about 100 RVs sitting there parked. Does this anywhere say that it's only in relation to a residential lot? Do we need to consider that potentially? I mean, it's never been an issue,
Right.
but,
They're not
Yeah.
occupied though.
right, but that doesn't, in the top of this bylaw doesn't even say that. Doesn't even say occupying, it just says
Yeah, with.
they're not gonna be kept within the boundaries of the town except under the following conditions. Do we need to put in a D in relation to
Commercial.
a commercial RV dealership? I don't know. I mean, nobody's ever cared, right?
No, it's a decent question.
Right. All right. Well, I'm glad I brought this all up. Is there somebody among us other than me who would be willing to take this and just draft, and this doesn't have to be by next meeting. And this just might be, again, one of those things that we try to do that I don't know whether we would try to get it done at a special town meeting or have this wait until next annual town meeting of 2026. But I'd like this not to get forgotten. And there've been some great comments made.
I'll take it on.
That'd be
You
great.
want? Yeah.
This seems like it's,
Laura, I'd be
Shouldn't-
happy to help you.
yeah.
I just can't do it until like end of March.
That's fine.
Right. I think it would be just great to just get something done. And then when we have a public hearing on some other things, like bundle it in, save some money.
Yeah.
And just get, I think of this as a little bit like general bylaw hygiene.
Mhm.
And maybe if we're gonna end up doing a public hearing related to battery energy storage, we can tack on something like this, that would be a
Yep.
kind of a. Nobody would get up in arms about if it went to a special town meeting. Okay, all right, anything else? I'm prepared to move off of this subject. Okay, very good. So how are we doing on time? 5:48, we're doing great. So, bylaw revisions need to bring accessory apartment regulations into compliance with Florida law. So what I can tell you is the state has still not released any model zoning bylaws. They're saying they're coming soon, like in the next few weeks. There is a webinar scheduled for March 11th at 3 p.m., which sadly, because I, unlike you guys, don't like work, know, I'm no longer a productive member. Well, no, I teach, but anyway. But I'm not as productive a member of society as the rest of you. I will be able to go to this 3 o'clock webinar and hear from the state about, I think at that point, they're going to have a model zoning bylaw out and they've also offered help to cities and towns that want to deal with it, but I'm guessing that again, we've previously agreed we're gonna kind of hold off on anything, on doing anything on our own until we see what the state agrees. Okay, so I'll have more to say at our March meeting after I attended that webinar. All right, that's right. Any other? I'm ready to move on to the next topic. Okay. Discuss upcoming planning board membership changes. All right. So Sarah's moving on to something, I don't know, better, different, after
Less.
June. One of the things, so I want to have a little conversation about, let me see how I can articulate this. So number one, I've drafted, this was just this afternoon, so I was gonna come back to this if the topic's not reasonably anticipated, but I was able to spend a little time drafting a planning board update for the next Whately scoop. And I'm gonna share the draft with all of you later in tonight's agenda. But I've included in that piece a few sentences basically to say, hey, we're gonna have an open. Right? And directing interested people to reach out to the planning board through the planning board email. I've also forwarded that text over to Nat Fortune, since he's the appointing authority, to see if he has any feedback on the text. Also, if he really wants people to go to him first. And this seemed like an opportunity to just kind of maybe ask the open-ended question. First of all, we can take a moment tonight to see if anyone has any ideas or recommendations about people we should try to personally reach out to or recruit. You know, we've gotten 3 wonderful new members recently through this process. I will say I have some mixed feelings about a process of filling board positions in a way that can be very opaque. On the other hand, we end up having a working board of people who are collegial and get along. But yeah, so I just maybe wanted to see if people have any names that they are considering floating in the context of a public meeting that we might want to reach out to.
I've spoken to before that I think an important voice to the planning board is a farmer in Whately.
Yes,
Someone, a legacy farms perhaps, but someone that has a farming point of view that's important for Whately. And I've reached out to Mike Mahar and also the Scott girls, and Scott Farm is also one of the oldest farms in Whately it is. But Mike Mahar is interested in becoming a member of the planning board.
oh, interesting,
He
okay.
is. He's a 2nd-generation farmer in Whately. He makes his living farming. Does compost, he raises beef cows,
Okay,
and I said, you know, we're not always gonna agree on stuff, but agree, disagree, but you have a strong, you know, he's a strong voice that needs to be heard. And he
Cool.
might-
JD, you scared me for a moment. I thought you were gonna mention John.
No. But
Oh,
Mike
he's
is interested.
retiring.
okay, Mike is interested.
I know that there's a little adversary, his father and Nat Fortune.
Oh, okay, well, that doesn't matter,
I hope it has nothing to do with it.
okay. Just out of curiosity, what part of town does he?
Mike lives in Poplar Hill, way out in West Whately.
Near the reservoir in the west.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly where that
He
is.
lives next to the pump.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and
He's 40.
interested, you know, there are a lot of things that one could consider. You know, once you've established willingness
Yeah,
and, a pulse, and all the other things we look for. I still feel like it would be great if we had a little bit more geographic diversity representation across town. It's like we have a concentration now up in West Whately.
Well, you're not West Whately,
No, I'm in the center.
you're center, I'm West Whately.
I think thought you lived up Haydenville.
I, just Alex and I do.
Oh,
Mhm.
Actually, JD, I think we're
JD
you
and
know,
Patty are neighbors.
right
yeah.
on the line.
yeah, okay, then I was completely.
Yeah,
I can throw a baseball at Patty's house.
All right, so, because I'm sort of East Whately,
Yep.
and then maybe you guys, and then you're up in.
I'm
West
on
Whately.
Haydenville Road, but we're not like deep West Whately.
Okay,
Mike is another probably
right.
4 or 5 miles from my house.
10-minute ride from the center, I'm getting Mike's house.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great point.
Ultimately, JD, I like your idea
Yeah,
of getting someone from ag
yeah,
onto the
farm.
planning board.
yeah,
Whaley has a rich farming history and having that voice is
right. Is it, and not, at all undercut your recommendation, would it be worth reaching out? I could reach out to the Ag Commission
Sure
to
can.
see if they would, pulse their network to say, it would be great.
I've reached out to Alan Sanderson, not anyone in his family.
Yeah,
And his daughter lives out of town,
okay,
and his son is in a position to do it right now.
yeah,
And I reached out to the Scott girls,
okay,
Heather and Sarah Scott, who are now married with different last names. I'm sorry, Jen
Je-
and Heather.
Jen and
Jen is a
Rusty.
full, she runs her father's farm.
John was on the ag committee.
okay, yeah.
She's got a lot on her plate right now, that Heather's a nurse.
Do you think Mike Mahar could take this on and
Yeah,
could make the time and,
yeah, there's not a lot of farms left. And a farmer that is willing to have the time to do it.
yeah, really? Yeah, no,
Which is why we need to support them.
yeah.
And
no,
having
I'm-
West Whately, deep West Whately represented would be great.
Yes.
I mean, I've
Okay.
kind of, because I have some ties to West Whately, sort of crossed both lines,
Right,
with my ties to Shamuka, but
right,
yeah, Mike would be great.
okay,
Yeah.
well, that's an endorsement.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Would be a next step to have you contact Mike and encourage him
sure,
to just email me and then I'll
Sure.
set up a time to talk to him?
sure. He and I were on the Whitney 350 committee for the tractor parade, and he was great.
Okay.
He was wonderful.
I have, as somebody who mostly experiences farms either through consuming their products or riding my bike past their fields, I have, and my wife too, we have so many questions about farms and farming that I'd love to get to know a farmer better.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think it's great.
all right.
Has anyone asked the Galunkas?
I've met briefly the daughter.
Emma, I don't think she's a Whitney resident.
Oh, is that
No,
so?
she's in Conway now
Yeah.
and not working on the farm.
Well,
I
Mike
have
sounds like a
not.
good option, if he's willing to participate.
Yeah,
I'm happy to contact Jim or Jen.
Yeah, you could reach
why
out.
not? Why not, Patty? Look, this is, I think we should have a open aperture
100%.
and then, yeah, see it. What's again weird is it's not elected. I don't know that we can discuss, and I think our position should be maybe to make a recommendation
Yeah.
to the appointing officer.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think that would be good. So Patty, I'd love to take you up on your offer to reach out to Jim and who?
Jan is what.
Jim and
Jan.
Jan, and see, Jen?
Jan.
Jan,
Jan.
Jim and Jan.
No, Jen, Jen.
No, it's Jan, it's Janice, or Janice, Jan.
Well, I'm gonna not get in the middle of it, but whoever knows the right person,
Yeah,
please, Patty, do that. And if you get a feeling like, yeah, I'd be interested, I'd like to learn more before
yeah,
making any commitments, then just all I need is their willingness to talk to me.
yeah.
That also puts a lot of power on Route 5.
I think it would be fine. I think. we'll-
I have a feeling they're gonna be too busy with their harvest season and everything.
I think so as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I love Galanka Farm,
Oh,
so,
sorry.
Well, the corn is the best.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
But
and if
still,
Mike has, said that he would do something or was interested, I would go there first.
Right,
He said he would do it, so.
yeah, so, yeah, but again, make the ask.
Sure.
People love to be asked, and maybe if the answer is no today, in a year or two or whatever, or whenever we might need, maybe the answer will be yes.
Yeah.
All right,
So
so,
I did reach out to the Belders, Chucky Belder, he's got too much on his plate.
okay.
So I did reach out to the
I wasn't
Belder
gonna
farm as
suggest
well.
Any other names before we move on? All right, so I think we have an action, and I'll still go ahead with putting this thing in the Whately scoop, because it'll do no harm, you know?
Yeah.
So that's. Do we have any updates on any other planning work, or anything new, right, exit 35, JD?
Nothing,
Nothing on exit 35.
just waiting to get a grant or something for Erica to
Okay.
do something.
All right, so none of this. Approval of minutes, we're not approving any minutes because there are no more minutes to approve, so we get. So we'll catch up at the end of March on February 12th and tonight's meeting regarding minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I forwarded you Grant while we were sitting here, those notes, so you should have. them.
Yeah, like not paying attention. Thank you, perfect, okay. Wow, this is great, 6 o'clock and I'm at 9 out of 10. So, a topic's not reasonably anticipated. So first I'll let you know that Pete, Kane and I today interviewed 3 candidates for the land use assistant position. And we've identified, a candidate. Anyway, so we've made progress on that front, but it would take until March 11th, the next select board meeting, for an appointment to be made, and then that person could start work on March 12th. So hopefully, again, we will not have to keep doing our own minutes and things like that. We had a lot, we had like 29 applications. Anyway, there's some talent out there, which is great. Now, just a heads up, the Whately got a grant to do a new, it used to be called a master plan, but it's now called a comprehensive plan. So FERCog is going to be the lead on doing our master plan, our comprehensive plan. They are going to come to our March 26th meeting. And for 15 minutes and just update us on like what's gonna happen, how it's gonna play out. It's gonna it's gonna be work. Some of this work is gonna happen here within this committee, because we're gonna have a duty to do, provide review and feedback, participate in this process. What the comprehensive plan ultimately can do is provide a framework for it provides a context for decision-making around bylaw amendments. Like, what does the town want and what's its vision? How do bylaws help or hinder that? To the extent that they don't help, it's incumbent on us to think about making amendments to bring zoning more in line with the town's comprehensive plan. So that'll be something new to learn about at the end of March. And then I think the last thing I'll do is, let me get rid of this. Let me just share. I'll share you my draft scoop article. Scoop article. And by. So the deadline is this Sunday. screen share what I drafted for all of you. And it's not that long, so it should be easy for people to just look at this on the screen. So I put in, so I'm just gonna let people read the first paragraph. Then I can move on to, this is a little bit more that's not on screen. Oh, by the way, while I'm sharing my screen, this link actually works. Pete, I sent him material, Pete put it up today, so this is a live link.
Oh, cool.
I'll share screen so you can see what's there. But, because I said I want the link up so that I can refer to it in the Whately scoop article.
Yep.
So we want to have a piece that just lets people know about these upcoming
Mhm.
bylaw amendment proposals. Then I wrote a little piece about the ADU, paragraph 2. Have a look at that. Studying that one. Okay. And then the last piece was about the recruiting piece. And people can decide if my description of an ideal planning board member is something we can all sign on to.
I think so.
Sarah, Patty? Feeling good about
I
it?
very much like nonpartisan.
Yes.
All right. And you think, okay, well, so I don't,
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I don't think we need a vote on this.
No.
But I'm gonna send this, I'm gonna wait for feedback from Nat regarding the wording of that last paragraph. But barring that, this is what I'll send over to Joyce. And that is all I have. Our next meeting, let me get rid of this. Our next meeting is also on the 26th, but the 26th of March. To be done in the same way. So I get to see you all again in a month's time.
Cool.
Barring
Thank you.
anything else. Questions, comments, somebody could feel free to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn
Will you?
tonight's meeting. I will. Sure.
Okay, a motion.
You go, girl.
Motion has been
I'll
made.
second.
Okay, let's not all pile on with their seconds. So motion made by Laura, seconded by JD. Roll call vote. I'm inconsistent about this. Patty is an aye.
Yep.
Sarah is an aye. Laura,
Aye.
JD is an aye, and I'm an aye, so we are adjourned until March 26th. Thank you all, and see you in a month.